Hey everyone, welcome to the Anarchy Podcast. 99% of traders will never make consistent profits. So why listen to the 99% of advice? On this show, we're going to challenge some of the most hallowed and repeated tenets of trading, and in doing so, set you up to succeed where others fail. Spoiler alert, we don't have a secret strategy or magic wand that will let you skip out on the hard work of learning the markets, but we can debunk viewpoints that are holding you back. If that sounds good to you, come join us.
Hello, and welcome to the Anarchy Podcast. Recently, we just had news that shook the day trading community, or at least a good part of it, with the fact that MFF was essentially blocked and shut down, and all the assets and everything freezed, meaning people who have accounts with them, people who are doing challenging with them, all of that is currently frozen. And MyForexFunds has essentially ceased to exist for the time being. So today we're going to discuss what that means for you and what that means for the day trading community in general, and also why Levi and I are still high on prop firms. Levi, how are you?
Doing well, Jordan. Doing well. Yeah, I went into. I actually have a
I was going to
current.
say, this one hit you close to home.
I had a current my Forex Funds account, and I logged into it. And it was like, huh, the charts aren't moving this morning. Wonder what that's all about. Checked into Twitter, and everyone was losing their minds. Thankfully, I it's not like a ton of money in there because we'll talk over essentially what our take is on first of all, I guess the summary of what happened, what they're saying MyForexFunds did, and then kind of give a rundown of why we're still high on prop firms as a whole, and kind of how we view prop firms as a kind of how we view them as a tool. So you were telling me a little bit earlier about kind of the difference in our approach to prop firms, I think, than a lot of other people. Do you want to give a summary, I guess, of what I think we should start, I guess, with the summary of what they did, and then we can move on to what we're feeling.
Yeah, well, I mean, essentially what they were doing is they were saying, okay, use our money, trade, you're then going to use our money to then trade in the live markets, blah, blah, blah. Well, it turns out that they weren't actually doing that, meaning everything was essentially being demo traded, and they were just paying winners. It was a Ponzi scheme, essentially, right? The allegations say that they were essentially paying, there was no third-party liquidity provider. Essentially, they were just paying the winners out of their own pocket from what they got from people who were then paying them challenges. So like they got paid, they had brought in about $310 million, and then they paid out, still paid out 170 million or something, but they kept that other 150 million dollars. And so that was one thing. There was no live money, there was no live trading going on. People were just, they were just essentially taking money in, giving money out to winners. And then, of course, the winners, the allegations are, and honestly, I think you experienced this a few times, was that people who were winning or did have accounts or were winning too much, they actually literally had software that was causing orders to be executed at worst price. So essentially artificial slippage and reasons for terminating customer accounts, etc.
Yeah, I'd actually noticed that. I had a conversation with you back a couple months ago, going, man, the slippage on MMF is awful. And turns out they were artificially doing it to keep people from winning. So they would purposely try to keep, as obviously once someone passes, now they have to shell out money, and so they want everybody to fail as much as possible, since it was a Ponzi scheme. So yeah, they had artificial slippage. I know there was I'd seen some internal emails, I think, that already came out of them, specifically saying, hey, this person's winning too much money, we've got to take care of it. So it was really, really bad. So anyway, that's kind of that. More stuff is going to come out on that going forward, I'm sure. That's
and honestly, they're not going to be the only one. Let's be honest. It's not like they're the only one.
No, there's going to be a lot of dominoes falling. I think, especially since the prop firm space has become really crowded in the last couple of years. So we'll see who else gets wrecked from this, as they should. So anyway, okay, that's the summary of where we're at with the issues. We have a bit of a, I think, unique take on prop firms in that we're not terribly high on them as far as long-term money-making tools. The reason we advise to use prop firms in the learning process is to learn, right? It's not to for a long-term tool. And I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong. I think in my opinion, the long-term goal for any day trader is to have their own money and trade their own money. You shouldn't be trusting people who could potentially be a bunch of scam artists, as it turns out MFF was, even though they were really well known. That's the craziest part. These weren't some backwater place. They were very, very well known. So the long-term goal is to have your own money to trade. The reason we still like prop firms, even in the face of all this, is that we don't view them as, they're not our bread and butter, right? You shouldn't be making all your money from prop firms and have no money in the bank to trade of your own. The reason the thing is, prop firms give you a fairly cheap way to trade with stakes, trade with consequences, and that's really what's very, very vital when you're learning day trading. Hey everyone, Levi here to quickly ask if you're finding value in the podcast. We would love it if you'd take a moment to follow the show and leave a review. It helps us out a lot and enables us to bring you the best possible content. Thanks for being part of the community. I love you guys.
Honestly, it doesn't matter, right? Like, it literally doesn't matter it doesn't matter if they're scammy. It doesn't matter if they're not. It doesn't matter if they shut down after a month. Like, you're investing, again, if you're a beginner, you're investing $100 a month to then practice with real stakes. And it doesn't matter, right? Like, you're doing it for the practice, so it really doesn't matter. Now, as you become a better trader and more profitable, and let's say you want to do bigger accounts, so you're paying for a $200,000 challenge or something.
Mm-hmm.
What are you supposed to be doing like that? So again, this is essentially, you're taking money out of there as quickly as possible, so you get your withdrawal in a month. And you better not be blowing that on your living expenses, right? Like, you should be now taking your prop firm money, putting it into an actual brokerage account, and trading that money in your own account. Like, that's what you're supposed to be doing, because again, I don't care what prop firm it is. They are not stable. They're not there for the long term. And as you said, they're not your bread and butter. The prop firms are a great way to learn, and then they're a great way to essentially just get more leverage on your money and withdraw some, squeeze some blood from the
stone.
beast. Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's not your long term, or it's not your main strategy. And that's where I think some people are freaking out, and everyone complaining online about, oh, this place is a scam, or they closed my account down. Yeah, it doesn't really matter, right? You spend $100, you practice, and then you keep practicing, right? Otherwise, like, you would be spending that much just, losing your own money, and you can't even trade. So it's like, it works out, right? Like, it doesn't, in my whole opinion is it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you were to the reason we like prop firms is that to trade with stakes, you have to trade with real consequences. And so either you trade with your own money, which you're going to fail consistently early on, and that can get really expensive really quick, or you can trade with stakes. Yes, they're the prop firm's money, and they are technically demo accounts, but it's still stakes. It still feels real, right? It's a good middle ground, and that's why we really like them for beginners. They're a great middle ground to give you stakes without blowing your own money. And so, yeah, the second you start passing those things, the second you begin to have the skills to pass those, now you need to start putting that money into your own account, building your own capital that you can then use. So you don't have to be trusting, strangers on the internet, hoping that they're not scam artists and ending up like some people I see online, like had tons of money that they, quote unquote, won, right? But that's now tied up that they're never going to see, probably, right? Instead of, hey, you passed, now start taking that money and building it into your own accounts that you can then use in the future.
Yeah. So I mean, long story short, it's a bit of a crazy thing, but I think in some ways it's also good because it's bringing more attention to making things, I would say, more regulated. And more regulation isn't going to hurt us, right? Like there are going to be a ton of prop firms, as we said. I think there are going to be a ton of prop firms that we see go down in the near future with this. But
Yep.
that doesn't really matter because the ones that are left are going to be legitimate. There's going to be more regulation going on, and more regulation in turn when it comes to this type of thing. I mean, goodness, I am never for it, but more regulation in terms of this type of thing, probably a good thing because this is going to make sure that there aren't a bunch of new traders again. And why I had an issue, especially with some of the prop firms, is any prop firm that's like, we're here to make sure that that we don't make money if you don't make money, and we're going to teach you how to trade. It's all bull crap. And anytime like that, even I could mention a couple names of another couple very legitimate, like the biggest trading platforms where they're like, come and they're selling trading courses and their prop firm, and that just again, it's just so like that's not why they're there. They're not there to make you successful. They're there to make a buttload of money. For instance, $310 million in the last 2 years. It's crazy. And so
and so they're the second they start marketing themselves as a way for beginners to get rich, that's where it's like, okay, you just jumped the shark right now. that is where it's really scummy, right? As long as you're, if nobody, well, in fact, I shouldn't say as long as you're, because I don't know anybody who does who isn't dishonest about this. I don't really know any prop firm that isn't marketing themselves as ways for beginners to pass and to get money. I don't know anybody who's honest and says, "Hey, beginners, you're not going to pass this, but we'll give you, the opportunity to work toward this while, giving us, $100 a month to work toward this." I don't see anybody doing that, and so that's really unfortunate. But that's kind of besides the point. You can still use it as long as you go in with your eyes wide open, go in not looking for a way to get rich, but as a way to practice with stakes. And that's where the value comes from. So we'll continue to track how this situation unfolds. But as long as you go in carefully, go in viewing this as a training ground, you won't get burned.